The best story games are the ones that stay on your mind even when you are not playing them. The ones with characters you get attached to, moments that hit hard, and endings people still bring up years later. So in this video, we are going through some of the best story games everyone must experience.
You make every shot count.
The Last of Us is still one of the most emotionally devastating story games ever made, and honestly, not many come close. You play as Joel, a hardened survivor moving through a post-apocalyptic America destroyed by a fungal infection, and he is tasked with escorting Ellie, a teenage girl who may be more important than she first seems. On paper, that sounds like standard end-of-the-world stuff, but that is not really why the game sticks with people. The infected are a huge part of it, sure, but that is not even what kept me playing. It was Joel and Ellie. It is really the small moments that do it, just them talking, joking a bit, and slowly not feeling like strangers anymore. The game also does not shove the emotional moments in your face, which makes them land way more. It is tense, sad, beautifully paced, and still one of the best examples of storytelling in gaming.
You know the trouble with an adventurous life?
Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 feels like getting dropped into a medieval world that really could not care less whether you are ready for it or not. You are back with Henry, and the game wastes no time reminding you that this is not some power fantasy where everyone instantly treats you like a legend. You still have to earn your place, deal with people who think you are beneath them, and survive in a world where even a simple job can turn into a complete mess. There is a rough, believable quality to the whole thing that really suits it. The towns feel busy, the politics feel personal, and even small quests have that knack for turning into stories of their own. Henry also works really well as the center of it all because he is not some untouchable hero. He gets dragged into things, makes mistakes, and has to figure it out as he goes. If you like story games that pull you into their world properly, this one really does the job.
What have they done?
It's the macula.
A Plague Tale Requiem throws you straight back into that awful, exhausting kind of survival where it feels like the world just will not leave these two alone. You are with Amisha and Hugo again, and this time everything feels bigger, harsher, and a lot less hopeful right from the start. What I like about it is that it does not waste time pretending things might go back to normal. Amisha is already running on nerves, Hugo is still carrying far more than any kid ever should, and you can feel that strain in almost every scene. The stealth is tighter, the environments are gorgeous in that ruined, miserable sort of way, and when the rats show up in huge numbers, the whole thing gets properly intense. But the main thing is really watching how far Amisha is willing to go once fear turns into desperation. The game ends up feeling less like an adventure and more like watching two people get dragged through everything at once.
You a witcher.
Next up is The Witcher 3, and honestly, it doesn't take long to remember why people love it. You start out in White Orchard doing what feels like fairly simple work. Hunting monsters, helping random villagers, asking questions, getting dragged into problems that are never as straightforward as they first sound. Geralt is not treated like some legendary hero all the time either. Half the appeal is that he just feels like a tired guy doing difficult jobs for people who are usually hiding something. That is what makes the world so easy to get into. It feels messy, grounded, and full of people dealing with their own disasters while a war tears through everything in the background. And then the game keeps growing. The stakes get bigger, the choices get uglier, and even side quests start feeling more interesting than whole main stories in other games. It's the kind of game where you sit down to do one quest and suddenly your whole evening is gone.
It's just the beginning.
More and more androids show signs of deviancy.
Detroit Become Human starts with a hostage scene, and it tells you pretty quickly what kind of game this is. One wrong line, one bad read of the situation, and everything can fall apart in seconds. You follow 3 androids in a future where machines look human, act human, and are still treated like appliances until they start wanting more. Connor is the investigator, Marcus gets pulled into the bigger conflict, and Kara is the one who gives the whole thing its heart. The choices matter a lot more because the characters are actually interesting to follow. That is what makes all the sudden shifts work so well, because once things start going wrong, you actually feel it. A scene you thought would be simple turns into a disaster, and suddenly your version of the story starts going in a completely different direction. It is a little messy in places, but that does not stop it from being a really entertaining playthrough.
Nothing means more to me than this game.
Now for my all-time favorite, Red Dead Redemption 2. This game takes its time in a way that would probably annoy some people, but for me, that is exactly why it works so well. You are dropped into this gang that is already falling apart, hiding out in the snow, low on money, low on patience, and acting like one more bad day might finish them off. You play as Arthur Morgan, who at first just seems like the usual loyal outlaw, but the more time you spend with him, the more layered he starts to feel. It is in the quieter parts that you start to see who he actually is. You are not just running from shootout to shootout. You are around these people constantly, hearing all their problems, watching the mood in camp shift, and seeing the whole gang slowly unravel. Arthur ends up carrying so much of it on his back, and I'm sure a lot of you will agree that this is not the kind of story you forget anytime soon.
Goddamn tone.
The biggest pirate treasure of all time is within
Uncharted 4 starts off with Nathan Drake trying to live a normal life, and you already know that is probably not going to last. This time though, it is not just another excuse to send him chasing treasure again. There is a bit more weight to everything, especially once Sam shows up and pulls Nate back into all the stuff he was supposed to be done with. The big set pieces are still here, obviously, and they are some of the best the series has ever done. You get the shootouts, the collapsing buildings, the climbing sections where it all looks like it is about to go horribly wrong, and somehow Nate still keeps talking through all of it like this is a normal work day. It still has that classic treasure hunt energy, of course, just with a slightly more grown-up tone this time. By the time it wraps up, it is hard to imagine the series ending any other way. Next up, we got Nier Automata, and this is a game that gets weirder and better the longer you stay with it. You start off fighting machine life forms on a ruined Earth as 2B, and at first it almost feels pretty straightforward. Fast combat, stylish music, weird little robots, cool enough. Then it keeps opening up. The story starts shifting, the structure gets more interesting, and before long, you are looking at the whole thing in a completely different way. And that is where it starts getting really interesting, because it never seems satisfied with being one kind of game for too long. It keeps twisting the story around, reusing things in smart ways, and making you look at the same world from a completely different angle. And by the time 9S and A2 start adding their side of things, it all gets a lot heavier. The deeper you get into it, the less straightforward it becomes, and that is exactly what makes it so good.
We take pride in our service.
You are a samurai.
Ghost of Tsushima is one of those games that wins you over immediately. You go in expecting a big samurai open world, maybe a lot of sword fights, nice views, that kind of thing. And yeah, all of that is there, but after a while, it is the atmosphere you end up remembering most. Everything feels calm right up until it really is not. You play as Jin Sakai, a samurai trying to hold on to his honor while the island around him is falling apart. That is when it starts getting more interesting. It is not only about beating the Mongols. A lot of it is watching Jin drift further away from the person he used to be. The combat is clean, fast, and ridiculously satisfying, but a lot of the game's best moments are quieter than that. Following foxes through the woods, riding through fields while the wind guides you, or stopping for a duel that feels more like a stare down than a boss fight. Ghost of Tsushima just has that rare kind of style where everything feels deliberate, and it ends up being really hard to forget.
Are you prepared to suffer to save your son?
Heavy Rain is one of those games that really leans into the idea that one bad decision can ruin everything. You are following 4 different characters, all tied in some way to the origami killer case. And the whole thing has that grim, rainy, early 2010s thriller energy all the way through. Ethan is obviously at the center of it, and his part of the story is where the game gets most of its tension, especially once he starts getting pushed into those horrible trials. The writing can be awkward. The controls are definitely from another era, and some moments go so dramatic they almost loop back around to being brilliant. But that weird mix is also part of why people still talk about it. The whole thing plays out like a dark crime thriller, and that alone makes it really hard to stop once you are in. God of War is one of the best comeback stories a series has ever pulled off. The old games were all rage, chaos, and Kratos tearing through anything that looked at him the wrong way. This one still has that underneath, but now he is older, quieter, and stuck trying to raise a son while carrying around enough emotional baggage to sink a ship. You start with a funeral, a simple journey, and this weird feeling that something is off even when nothing big is happening yet. Then little by little, it opens up. The fights are heavy, the axe feels incredible, and every conversation between Kratos and Atreus keeps adding to that tension between them. Atreus wants answers. Kratos clearly does not want to give any, and that gap is where a lot of the story lives. By the end, it stops feeling like just another action game and turns into something much more personal. That's why for me, God of War is still one of the strongest story-driven games ever made.
The self-control of the one who wields it.
Still not bitten.
The Walking Dead is one of those games that looks pretty simple at first, and then suddenly you are way more invested in these people than you expected to be. You play as Lee, who ends up looking after Clementine right as the world is falling apart, and that relationship carries pretty much everything. The walkers are always there, obviously, but a lot of the tension comes from the people around you. Nobody really knows what they are doing, everyone is scared, and every group decision feels like it could turn into a problem 5 minutes later. You are constantly choosing who to back, who to doubt, what to say, and trying to hold things together when it is obvious the group is barely hanging on. Lee and Clementine are the reason it all lands as well as it does. And by the time it is over, I think most people get why this game still gets brought up whenever story games come up.
My name is Max Caulfield. I'm 18.
Next up is Life is Strange, and this game really leans into that quiet small-town atmosphere from the start. You are in Arcadia Bay as Max Caulfield, going back to school, taking photos, and just moving through a world that always feels a little off, even when nothing major is happening. Then Chloe comes back into her life, and from there, everything gets a lot messier. Their relationship is what carries most of it. You can tell there is a lot sitting under the surface, and the game does a good job making even simple conversations feel loaded. Rewinding time ends up making everything feel even more unstable because you keep trying to fix things without ever really knowing if you have. So even when you do get to change something, there is still this feeling that bigger stuff is slipping away from you. And yeah, some lines are a bit awkward, but the overall vibe of the game is so strong that you stop caring after a while. Moving on with Mass Effect 2. Shepard is back and somehow the whole thing feels more urgent almost straight away. The mission itself is huge, but a lot of what makes the game so good is the process of building the team around it. You are pulling in assassins, mercenaries, scientists, soldiers, criminals, all these completely different people who should probably never be stuck on the same ship together. And yet that is exactly why the Normandy ends up being such a big part of the game. After a while, it starts feeling less like a hub and more like a place you actually want to come back to. The loyalty missions do a lot for that too, because everyone gets their own space to stand out instead of just blending into the crew. It all builds toward a finale that works so well, because you are fully invested in every person on that ship. Batman Arkham City drops you into a prison super city where the whole place already feels like it is one bad night away from total collapse. Bruce gets thrown into the middle of it, suits up, and from there it is just problem after problem with barely any room to breathe. Protocol 10 is hanging over everything. Strange is clearly up to something. Joker is still causing chaos even when he looks half dead. And somehow, the game keeps piling more onto Batman without it ever feeling like too much. What I always liked here is how much is going on at once. It is not just one villain, one mission, or one clean objective. The whole night feels crowded in the best way, like Gotham has spilled all its worst people into one place and told Batman to sort it out. Between the main story, all the side stuff, and the way the city keeps pulling you in different directions, Arkham City ends up feeling like one long, brilliant Batman night.
Hello, Talia.
So that's the list. Let me know your favorite, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.